When natural disasters occur, countless monsters flood into the world, and the world becomes a paradise for monsters. Goblin, Abyssal Devil, Dragon, Vampire, Undead, Goblin, Black Water Snake. When killing monsters, you can awaken your life card book and obtain various miraculous cards, opening up a wonderful and diverse fantasy world. Keywords: communication, trading, summoning, blue water and golden-eyed beast, contract, clone, secret realm, primary processing factory, dungeon, teleportation, evil god, civilized war novel. Keywords: Global God Card Era no pop-ups, Global God Card Era TXT Complete Collection Download, Global God Card Era Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. The Advent of Natural Disasters, New Book Seeks Care. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Advent of Natural Disasters, New Book Seeks Care, South Lake Province, Jiangqing. As a typical small town in Jiangnan, it can be considered as a fourth-tier city across the country. Compared to those first and second-tier cities, this is a complete corner. However, even so, this place is still a place where nearly 1 million people make a living. Of course, Guran is currently not among the million. The reason is also very simple. Due to the epidemic, the company has laid off employees again, evading Guran's previous attempts, but this time it was not able to continue being lucky. In a rented house in the suburbs, Guran put down his mouse and stood up from his computer chair, walking straight to the refrigerator. It's almost 3 p.m. now, and he feels a bit hungry. Although he has resigned for 4 days, Guran is not anxious. On the contrary, he still enjoys this leisurely day without having to be busy all day. As an orphan, there is no need for people of all ages to bear the burden, and Guran has no psychological pressure at all. After only 4 days of resignation, his refrigerator was filled with various foods first. Fruits, instant noodles, chocolate, bread, beer, happy water, and so on are all kinds of things. On the ground on the left side of the refrigerator, there are also 2 bottles of 5L Farmer's 3 Fists. Roughly estimated, even if someone doesn't go out for the next 10 days, they will still live very comfortably. Just as he took out a bottle of happy water from the refrigerator, before he could even drink it, Guran furrowed his brow slightly, turned his gaze, and looked out through the rental window. He felt something was wrong. The outside world seemed too quiet, a bit excessive. You should know that although his current residence is in the outskirts of Jiangqing City, there are not many tenants nearby, so there is no reason for it to be so quiet. With a hint of doubt in his hand, and ignoring the delicious brand of happy water, Guran stepped towards the window. How could it be? Looking over several residential buildings not far away, Guran instinctively shifted his gaze upwards and gazed into the sky. He let out an unconscious soft cry, and his pupils instinctively contracted, as if he had seen some incredible sight. I saw the blue sky and white clouds on the sky, which were no longer the same as before, replaced by a terrifying red cloud that was extremely large and almost enveloped the entire river city. This red cloud presented an abnormal blood red color, and under the bright red light, the entire Jiangqing seemed to be wrapped in a layer of blood, eerie and terrifying. It was not only Guran who noticed this scene. Countless people on the streets, in parks, and in residential buildings, just like Guran, stared blankly at the sky. Even the vehicles driving on the road had stopped at some point, which caused Guran's confusion just now. In the silence, the red clouds above the sky changed once again. In the depths of the clouds, the blood mist began to surge wildly and gradually intensify, as if something was slowly brewing. Seeing this scene, Guran's eyes twitched and he instinctively felt a hint of something wrong, but he didn't wait for him to react. Boom! Accompanied by a thunderous roar, the floor beneath my feet shook violently. The words, earthquake, had just emerged in my mind, but the violent shaking suddenly dissipated, as if everything before was just an illusion. Glancing out the window again, Guran was startled to see an endless stream of gray air continuously gushing out from the depths of the red clouds. However, In the blink of an eye, the entire Jiangqing was almost completely shrouded in this grey mist, even the light became somewhat dim. With his eyes slightly narrowed, Gu Ran tried his best to scan the surroundings. As the fog continued to thicken, his vision was constantly being compressed. Even with the passage of time, another residential building just over 10 meters away from renting began to gradually blur. Before the field of vision completely dissipated, Gu Ran noticed a sudden burst of light surging from above the sky, which were hundreds of colorful light clusters falling straight down. Under the interplay of blue, black, red, and white, it feels like a stunning meteor shower. Due to never shifting his gaze, Gu Ran could clearly see these light clusters finally falling into various corners of Jiangqing. The closest one to each other falls into a small green forest on the road in front of my residential building. The straight line distance between oneself and it shall not exceed 200 meters. It is impossible to say that one is not curious about these strange light clusters. As a game and novel enthusiast, Gu Ran's thoughts are imaginative. Treasure. Meteorite. Or monsters from extraterrestrial or alien worlds. In the blink of an eye, he already had various speculations about those light clusters in his heart. However, due to curiosity, Gu Ran's mind quickly turned around. At this moment, the outside world is still in a state of mutation, and no one knows what has happened. It is also unknown whether there is any danger in the fog. It is obviously extremely unwise to go out rashly at this moment. With these thoughts in mind, Gu Ran quickly took action and the first thing to do was to lock the windows and close the curtains as soon as possible. He quickly ran to the front door again, locked it back, and after finishing these tasks, he immediately walked into the bathroom and filled all the buckets, pots, and other things in the house with water. Although there are currently 2 large bottles of Farmer's 3 Fists at home, being prepared will never go wrong. If there is a water shortage in the future, it can also sustain for a longer time. After being flustered and confirming that his phone, computer, and other devices had all been disconnected, Gu Ran finally rushed into the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase from under the bed. At the moment of opening the suitcase, a sophisticated mechanical composite bow appeared in front of me. As a typical otaku, archery can be said to be Gu Ran's only hobby apart from electronic products. The mechanical composite bow in front of him, which he had worked hard to get through to his friend, was unexpectedly encountered in this situation. Unfortunately, there were not many matching arrows, only 10, which made Gu Ran sigh for a while. However, I didn't think much about it. At the moment, I don't know what the situation is outside. It's unclear whether I need to get this mechanical bow or not. Holding a mechanical bow, Gu Ran walked back to the window of the outer hall. Before opening the curtains, Gu Ran's face changed first. Damn it, get out of here. Help, don't. Countless screams and screams kept coming from outside the window, mixed with even car collisions, as well as inexplicable roars and sharp growls. His expression changed for a moment, and Gu Ran's breathing was slightly rapid. Although the ability to accept is beyond that of ordinary people, when the fact is presented in front of me personally, the feeling of confusion in my heart still begins to magnify infinitely. Who? Taking a deep breath, Gu Ran forced himself to calm down, pressing his body tightly against the window and looking down as much as possible. Even though the outside world has long been shrouded in fog, his floor is not very high, and over time, the fog seems to be gradually dissipating, and the outline of the street below can still be vaguely seen. As his gaze shifted, Gu Ran tried his best to examine the situation below. However, the next second, his eyes suddenly widened, and in his field of vision, an incredible figure appeared. P.S. This book has been signed internally, so you can invest with confidence. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Book of Destiny Cards, New Book Seeking Care. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Book of Destiny Cards, New Book Seeking Care. Mori's bones, the flickering flames in his head, and the white bone spear that had already been stained red with blood. All of this seems to be telling Gu Ran, who is a creature that has appeared in countless novels and games. The undead skeleton in Undead Creatures. Of course, this is not the key point. The reason why Gu-Ran's face suddenly turned pale was still the thing in the hands of this suspected skeleton creature. That is a head, a human head that is still dripping blood, with round eyes and a frozen expression on its face. It is obvious that this creature, suspected to be a skeleton of the undead, has already killed at least one person, and it must hold great malice towards humanity. Damn it! With a low scolding, Gu-Ran clenched the left hand of the mechanical composite bow tightly, but did not choose to attack. He doesn't have many arrows in his hand, so he can't easily shoot them without any guarantee of being able to kill them. What he needs to do now is to further observe and understand the specific strength of this skeleton creature, as well as the specific situation around it, before finally deciding whether to take action. Blindly taking action is not his style. 10 minutes later, Gu-Ran quickly felt fortunate for his previous decision. In a short period of time, the number of skeletal creatures appearing in the field of vision has already exceeded 1 palm. It can be imagined that in places where they cannot be seen, their number may only increase. While feeling grateful for this, Gu-Ran felt a heavy burden in his heart. If the number of such skeletal monsters exceeded his imagination, his own situation would become extremely bad. However, during this period, Gu-Ran had an unexpected discovery that there were not only skeletal creatures appearing in the city. He saw the shadow of another creature in a corner, but it was a bit far away and his vision was not clear. But what can be certain is that its physique is completely different from that of a skeleton monster, and it is definitely a completely different kind of creature. After more than an hour, Gu-Ran put down the curtains and returned to the living room sofa. After a long period of observation, he had roughly figured out the strength of the skeleton monsters outside, which were far stronger than ordinary adult male humans. In a 1.1 situation, they could completely crush each other, but they were far from reaching the level of despair. Roughly estimated, in a 5.1 situation, both sides are likely to remain deadlocked. That is to say, each head of this skeleton monster can be 1.1. In this regard, Gu-Ran not only did not feel any fear, but also breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. At least this thing was not yet strong enough to suffocate. If there were 5 people with combat power, as long as he seized the opportunity, secured the position, and added the mechanical bow in his hand, he still had some grasp. Having reached this conclusion, Gu-Ran did not continue to wait any longer. It was already approaching dusk, and night was about to fall. Who knew what would happen at night? If you don't hurry up and do something now, by the time the crisis strikes, you may not even be able to do the most basic resistance. He quickly ate a piece of bread and filled his stomach. Gu-Ran held the mechanical bow and strode to the front door. After repeatedly confirming that there were no monsters in the hallway outside, he opened the locked door. Lock the door, put away the key, and Gu-Ran began to take action. Instead of choosing to go downstairs, he slowly headed towards the upper level. The residential building he is in has 7 floors, and he is only on the 3rd floor. Before going out, he naturally needs to determine the situation of the entire building. As soon as he reached the 4th floor, Gu-Ran noticed the situation. Dong dong dong. The heavy impact sound kept ringing, which is not normal in the current situation. After identifying the source of the impact sound, Gu-Ran grabbed the tool he had carried with him and after multiple operations, accompanied by a click sound, he pried open the door of the room. However, just as the door was pried open, the eerie and dense collision sound inside the house suddenly came to an end. Upon hearing this, Gu-Ran's hair stood on end without any hesitation, and he quickly retreated towards the rear. Almost in the next second, with a loud bang, the pried open door was forcefully smashed open, and a grayish-green figure roared out of the room. The grayish-green figure held a small wolf tooth stick in his hand and rushed out of the room without stopping. He rushed straight towards Gu-Ran, who had exited for several meters. The wolf tooth stick in his hand was waved high, and Ran suddenly felt a smell of fishy smell spreading across his face. As his face remained unchanged and his figure continued to collapse, he lifted his left hand and pulled his already arched mechanical bow to the full moon. Shoo! The arrow whistled out, pointing straight at the head of the monster ahead. However, probably due to nervousness, although aimed at the opponent's head, the arrow ultimately landed on their shoulder. The monster let out a painful roar, its figure trembled slightly, and then unexpectedly rushed towards Ran again, ignoring it. Seeing this, Ran lightly bit the tip of his tongue and forcefully suppressed the rising anxiety in his heart. As he flew back, he quickly took out the second arrow from behind. A few seconds later, the arrow swept out again, this time without any deviation, landing straight on the monster's head and piercing into its left eye, and thick green blood spurted out. However, what angered Ran was that even so, the monster continued to attack, and the crucial blow did not seem to cause fatal damage to it. Damn it! With a low scolding, there was no time to think more. Ran could only repeat the previous operation. Fortunately, the fourth-floor corridor was long enough, and he ran towards the entrance of the corridor. Both sides chased until the third floor. Under the stairs, the mechanical bow is once again full. Dead. With a deep roar in his mouth, although his momentum was strong, Ran's heart felt a wave of emptiness. The monster had already attached 7 arrows, and he only had 3 left in his hand. If he could no longer kill it, he would have to choose to run away in embarrassment. In this case, the arrows fired will also be difficult to retrieve, which will greatly affect his future plans. The arrow flew and luckily pierced the monster's right eye. In this moment, the monster completely lost sight and fell heavily to the floor with a loud bang. Seeing this, Ran hurriedly added 2 more arrows, and after dozens of seconds, the monster finally stopped struggling. Whew! A heavy gasp came from my nose, and a smile appeared on the corner of my mouth. It's not in vain after all. In a moment of joy, a white spot suddenly emerged from the corpse of the monster in front of him, and before Ran could react, it quickly penetrated his forehead. For a moment, Ran felt his own strength suddenly surge, as if he had an inexhaustible force all over his body. If his physique was just a normal standard for an ordinary person before, then after this strengthening, Ran feels that he will definitely be able to do it easily. As the body strengthened, a mechanical reminder sound suddenly sounded in the ear. Obtained 2 points of source energy, awakened a life card book, killed an alien race for the first time, and received a newbie reward, card score *10, choose one of 3 random miracle cards. Furthermore, as the mechanical prompt sounded, Ran noticed that something seemed to have appeared in his mind. That is a square card book, emitting sparkling white light throughout its body. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The first kill of Forika. First miracle card, new book seeking support. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. First kill of Fully card, first miracle card, new book seek support. Upon closer inspection, Ran noticed that there were a total of 6 slots on this card book, but at this moment, all of these slots were empty and he didn't know what their purpose was. And as he focused his entire attention on this card book, the book suddenly trembled lightly, and then a flash of light flashed before his eyes, a virtual light curtain emerged in front of him. Name: Ran, race: Human/Card Master, age: 21, level 0, 2/10, life card book. 0 out of 6, miracle card. None, card score. None, is this my character panel? A wave of surprise filled my heart, but then it was replaced by a plethora of doubts. He remembered the mechanical sound just now reminding him that he had already earned 10 points and seemed to have another miraculous card, but now there was nothing on the character panel. It wasn't until he stepped over to the corpse of the monster that his mind finally understood. This monster has grayish-green skin all over its body, and its surface seems to carry unknown mucus. It is also unclear what kind of creature it is. Above the monster corpse, there are two gray light clusters suspended at this moment. Through the outer halo, it is clear to see that each of the two light clusters has a card inside. Dropped. In an instant, Gu-Ran's heart flashed through countless scenes of monster hunting and treasure dropping in games. Gently shaking his head, suppressing these chaotic thoughts, Gu-Ran carefully picked up the two cards. He didn't rush to check, first retracted all the arrows from the unidentified monster on the ground, dragged the body to the corner of the hallway, and dried the sticky liquid on the ground to avoid affecting future actions. In his rented house, there was a click sound, accompanied by the door being locked. Until now, Gu-Ran's tense body finally relaxed. At the same time, the two cards in the pocket were quickly removed. Card points * 10 points, note. This card does not occupy a slot and will disappear directly after use. After reading the card on his left hand, Gu-Ran raised his eyebrows. Instinctively associated with the life card book in his own mind, and as his mind spun. The next second, the card score in the left hand disappeared straight away. Looking at the character panel, the card score column had suddenly changed to 10. So it was controlled by heart and mind. Having figured out the so-called card usage method, Gu-Ran's gaze turned once again to the other card in his hand. That card is clearly just a bonus, the remaining card in hand is the key. First kill fortune card, please choose one of the following 3 miracle cards as your first kill, alien, reward. You have 20 seconds. If you do not choose after the time, option A will be selected by default. A. Blue stone card Goblin standard wolf teeth stick, B. Blue stone card inside, C. Blue stone card forest walker. His eyebrows twitched as he looked at the 3 options popping up in front of him. Gu-Ran didn't make a decision in the first place. The 3 ABC options listed were only the names of the 3 cards. What Gu-Ran needs to compare is their specific attributes. Tap your finger several times on the virtual light screen in front of you, and then list the specific attributes of the 3 cards in front of you one by one. Blue stone card Goblin standard wolf teeth stick, quality. Blue stone 1 star, regular, passive. Equip this card and you will be able to summon a standard Goblin wolf tooth stick as your own weapon at any time. Note. Passive does not require card points, active, Skull Crush. Consumes 2 points. The next time you use the wolf tooth stick to attack, it will increase damage by 15% and have a 10% chance of putting the target in a 1-second stun state. Cooldown time. 10 minutes, blue stone card inside eye, quality. Blue stone 2 stars, rare, passive. Equipping this card will give you the ability to view specified creature attributes. Note. Passive does not require card points, active, soul-reaching eye. Consume 4 points of card points, condense a vertical pupil spirit eye in the void, and emit a soul-reaching light on a designated unit. Depending on the strength of the enemy's soul, freeze the enemy's soul for 0.2 seconds. Note. If the enemy unit's soul is too strong, the user will be backfired and an additional 4 card points will be deducted. Blue stone card forest walker, quality. Blue stone 1 star, regular, passive. Equip this card and gain a 20% movement speed bonus in the forest environment. Note. Passive does not require card points, active, forest stalker. Consume 2 points to hide oneself in the surrounding forest. Moving or attacking will make the hiding effect disappear. Due to the urgency of time, Gu-Ran looked at everything at a glance, but the attributes of the 3 cards were not missed at all. After pondering for a moment, he quickly made a decision. After selecting option B, you have obtained the blue stone card inside eye. I only heard the mechanical prompt sound in my ear, and then Gu-Ran had an extra card in his hand, which was the Eye of Insight. As for why I chose this insight eye over the other 2, the reason is simple. Firstly, not to mention its quality as a rare blue stone star, which is significantly higher than the other 2. Secondly, considering that the current environment is a modern city made of stacked steel and cement, the dense forest traveler in option C can be ruled out. It needs to be designated in the forest environment to play a role and is unlikely to be used in a short period of time. As for the Goblin Wolf Tooth Stick card, it is a weapon card, which is not necessary for Gu Ran, who currently has a mechanical composite bow in hand. Considering these factors, Gu Ran firmly chose the Eye of Insight card in his hand. Glancing at the card in his hand several times, Gu Ran had a myriad of thoughts. This type of card ability, almost every card is a unique superpower, which was almost unimaginable before the mutation. Thinking of this, Gu Ran instinctively thought of the various immortals who had flown and fled from the novels he had read before. Turning the river and the sea, chasing the stars and the moon, sitting and forgetting about immortality, the thought that this ability, which is almost mythological and legendary, is not unattainable, instantly ignited his heart. I just don't know how difficult it is to obtain this miracle card. Since there are Bluestone 1-star and 2-star cards, are there still Bluestone 3 stars and Bluestone 4 stars? Are there any other higher quality cards above the Bluestone card? Are the hundreds of streams of light that fell from the sky before also various miraculous cards? In thought, Gu Ran came to the window again, his gaze pointing to the green forest on the other side of the road ahead. One of the hundreds of streams of light that had previously fallen happened to fall there. I struggled in my heart, but when I saw one skeleton after another on the street below, I reluctantly withdrew my gaze. With a thought, the Eye of Insight card in his hand suddenly disappeared, and then the 6 blank slots on his life card book were immediately occupied by one slot in his mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Dark Skull, for support. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Dark Skull, for support. In the moment of equipping the Eye of Insight, faint lights flashed through the depths of Gu Ran's pupils, and after a few seconds, they returned to calmness. But when he opened his eyes again, Gu Ran suddenly froze in place. His vision, which had been somewhat blurred due to his addiction to electronic products, became incredibly clear in this moment, as if the originally turbid water suddenly became incredibly clear. That feeling, to exaggerate, is as if it has been reborn at this moment, and the taste cannot be described in words. With a strong sense of excitement, Gu Ran's eyes flickered. After equipping himself with the Eye of Insight card, he immediately set his sights on the skeletal creatures on the street outside the window. Compared to the gray-green monster he had just killed, he already knew its name was Goblin when making card choices. Now what he wants to know more is the information about this creature that looks like an undead skull. After all, compared to that goblin, these skeletal creatures give people much stronger oppression. As his gaze fixed on a skeletal creature, messages quickly surfaced in his eyes. Name: Dark Skull, Normal, Race. Undead, Level 2, Weapon: Skeleton Spear, Skill. Sweeping the battlefield, Features: Possessing a white bone body, with a high immunity to physical damage, and fearing attacks from holy light. Looking at the attribute panel in front of him, Gu Ran fell into silence. It is obvious that this dark skeleton is temporarily beyond his control. After considering it for a long time, he decided to wait until he had cleared all the residential buildings and at least raise his own level. Then, he would consider the dark skull, and his chances of winning should increase significantly. According to the information on his own attribute panel, he is currently at level 0 and has not even reached level 1. However, based on the body strengthening he received from an ordinary person after awakening, it is not difficult to guess that with each level increase in the future, his body is likely to strengthen once. Not to mention upgrading to the same level as this dark skull, as long as he can advance again from level 0 to level 1, he has 80% confidence in achieving 1.1 killing. At the moment when there were countless thoughts, the strong hunger that came from within pulled Gu Ran back to reality. Didn't I just eat a big piece of bread not long ago? Why are you hungry again so quickly? At the same time, his movements were not slow. He walked quickly to the kitchen and prepared to reward himself with a box of instant noodles and, An extra sausage. Fortunately, the power has not been cut off at home yet, otherwise he really doesn't know how to get hot water. After all, he cares about someone's home. The kitchen is always a decoration, gas stove, and so on, don't even think about it. Of course, Guran was well aware that this was only temporary. Under the ravages of countless monsters, the entire city had already become chaotic, and a complete power outage was just a matter of time, either at night or at the latest, tomorrow. At that time, it will be very difficult to eat hot food again. Bring the water to a boil, soak it in the classic hot pepper brand instant noodles, and then find a hot water bottle from the corner that I didn't know when to buy. After cleaning, fill it up. Although I don't know if it can still be used, what if? Having a full stomach and no choice to continue going out, the light outside has begun to dim, and night is about to fall. Going out at this time is not a wise choice. After thinking for a moment, Guran piled up all 2 cabinets in the living room at the door. The 2 wooden cabinets were neatly stacked up and down, tightly blocking the entire door. It can be imagined that if there were any monsters colliding outside, it would be extremely difficult to break them open. Although this may seem exaggerated, now that unimaginable changes in the world have occurred, Guran has to be cautious because he knows very well that if something unexpected happens, it will be too late to regret it. Time passed by minute by second, and night had fallen. He dared not even turn on the lights. In the depths of the night, the roars of various monsters alternated incessantly, as if a slowly opening abyss mouth was about to devour someone. The residential building in front of him is now screaming in agony, and his brain and nerves seem to be a bit disorganized. Despite such a sudden change in the outside world, he dares to openly turn on the lights at night. Guran noticed that at the moment when the lights in his room lit up, various monsters on the street below seemed to receive a signal and rushed into the residential building across from him. After that, it was the scene before him. Regarding this, Guran secretly praised the residents of his building, at least the pig teammate did not appear among these people. Otherwise, if too many monsters flooded in, his hunting plan for tomorrow would really be a bit mysterious. After staying at the window for a while, it suddenly turned black in front of me. All the lights around me dimmed completely at this moment, and I didn't feel anything unexpected. Guran knew it was a power outage in the whole city. Returning to the living room sofa and sitting down, the mechanical composite bow and arrow bag are placed on the side of the body to ensure that if there is an accident, you can get it in the first place, and then click on your personal attributes panel again to check. That's it, nothing happened overnight. The next morning, Guran woke up early. Although there was no danger last night, he was awakened once midway. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, a loud knocking sound suddenly came from the next door. It was unclear whether it was bad luck or the residents making noise in their sleep. In short, after attracting monsters to rush into the door, Guran soon heard the sound of the door being smashed and screamed horribly. Regarding this, Guran's expression did not change much, and he had nothing to say about the neighbor's experience. When he went out to explore yesterday, he first explored the same floor, and naturally discovered that besides himself, there was another lucky person on this 3rd floor. At that time, he kindly invited him to move into his own house and share the house with the 2 of them, and clearly stated that it would be safer because more people have more power. However, in exchange, the other party refused without hesitation, and even did not open the door during this period. For this point, Guran can actually understand that under the current external changes, the order of the entire Jiangqing has collapsed, and the law does not exist. Under this premise, it is normal to be wary of strangers. But similarly, since one cannot trust others, when danger arises, one should be mentally prepared to be isolated and helpless, and not blame others for being killed by monsters. I hastily ate something, checked the mechanical bow in my hand several times, and finally, just in case, I took a large fruit knife and pinned it around my waist. After making sure to prepare everything, Guran moved the cabinet at the door and stepped out again. His plan for today is very simple. While ensuring his own safety, he will try to kill as many monsters as possible, and also collect materials. Of course, the most important thing is to see if we can get another brand new miracle card. In this world of change, our own hard power is ultimately the truth. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Crisis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Crisis. The first person to visit is naturally the unlucky neighbor's house that suffered last night. At this moment, there is a high possibility that there is an unknown monster hidden in their house, which poses a significant threat. I don't know if it's Goblin, don't be that dark skeleton. Looking at the door in front of him, even the frame had completely separated, and the shattered and unrecognizable face of the door, Gu-Ran's heart sank. This is by no means the destructive power that goblins can cause. Based on the one they killed yesterday, goblins are also a type of humanoid creature, even one head shorter than normal humans. It is impossible for goblins to have such terrifying power. Since it's not goblin, what else can it be? Is it really that dark skeleton? With a sense of solemnity, Gu-Ran dared not rashly enter the room. If he guessed correctly, the monster from last night must belong to the strong category. If this type of creature enters the narrow space rashly, it will be a real restriction on himself. Of course, the prerequisite is that the monster is still there. Pick up a broken door panel from the ground and throw it into the house along the door. Pada. The wooden board made a slight impact on the ground, while Gu-Ran's gaze scanned the room tightly. His mechanical bow was already full of strings. The fact also proved that Gu-Ran's response was definitely textbook style, almost like the moment the wooden board landed, a black shadow quickly rushed out from the side bedroom. Although its speed is not fast, its overall physique is extremely terrifying. Approaching a height of 2.5 meters, it feels like a little giant, with bulging muscles that can make former world bodybuilding champion feel ashamed. Its sharp fangs, stained with blood, sparkle with cold light, ferocious and terrifying. The monster was still holding a black giant axe that was almost human-high in its hand, and Gu-Ran even felt that with just a casual stroke, the stone axe could easily cut himself to the waist. Ignoring fear, the right hand holding onto the bowstring instinctively loosened, and the arrow turned into a cold light and shot fiercely. Due to the monster facing downwards, the arrow did not hit its head, but instead pierced its neck, which can be considered a precise hit. However, Gu-Ran was not at all pleased with this. Compared to the opponent's neck, which was as thick as his own waist, this arrow was like a slightly thicker steel needle. Although it penetrated directly into the monster's flesh, if it really caused much damage, Gu-Ran himself did not believe it. Another most uncomfortable thing is that after this arrow, he successfully replaced the wooden board on the ground and became the primary target of the monster in front of him. Staring at the monster's crimson eyes for a second, the attribute panel about the other person also appeared in their eyes. Name: Ogre, regular, race. Cannibal Demon Clan, level 1, weapon. Black Rock Stone Axe, skill. Powerful strike, features. Strong and strong, possessing terrifying power within the body, fond of cannibalism, and slow in speed. Is it a ogre? After looking at the attribute panel in front of him, Gu-Ran's eyes lit up with a flash of excitement, showing no surprise but rather joy. Although this monster has strong power, its speed is weak. With a mechanical bow in hand, as long as it does not face it head-on, its threat is not even comparable to yesterday's goblin. Seemingly just analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of this ogre, Gu-Ran's mind never stopped. He quickly came up with a solution and quickly retreated along the corridor towards the hallway, attacking without slowing down. Arrows flew from his hand one by one. As for the target of the attack, it is either the ogre's eyes or its neck. Although feeling the strong and bloody aura emanating from the ogre's body, Gu-Ran couldn't help but feel a lot of pressure in his heart, but he didn't lose his composure. Compared to yesterday's goblin, this ogre is obviously more resistant to beating, which also means it is extremely difficult to kill. This makes the already limited arrows in hand even more difficult, and each one must be hit hard. Otherwise, once the arrows are depleted, it is difficult to run and engage in close combat with the opponent. Following the stairs all the way to the 4th floor, Gu-ran took advantage of the ogre's slow climb and accurately shot 2 arrows again. 2 more arrows appeared on his head, causing the ogre to roar. Gu-ran's movements did not stop, the bowstring half opened again, and the 3rd arrow was about to be fired. At this rare moment, he wanted to shoot as many arrows as possible. However, below, the ogre's body suddenly paused, and the arm, as thick as an ordinary person's thigh, suddenly lifted. Later, the black stone axe in his hand turned into a black shadow and was thrown at lightning speed, which caught Gu-ran off guard at the entrance of the corridor. He never expected that the opponent's stone axe, which was almost as tall as his own, could still shoot and attack. Is it its powerful strike skill? Looking at the shimmering light on the stone axe that came towards him, Gu-ran was already 80% certain in his heart. Without much time to think about why the 4 words, heavy blow, represent ranged attacks, the black stone axe has already flown close. There was no time to dodge, so he could only use his instincts to gently lean to his side. The next second, Gu-ran only felt a sharp pain coming from his left shoulder. Immediately afterwards, a loud bang came from behind, and the stone axe was straight embedded into the wall at the end of the corridor, splashing with crushed stones. Without the intention to pay attention to the situation behind him, Gu-ran only had 2 words floating in his mind at this moment. It's over. In his opinion, under this blow, his left arm may have been directly disabled, and in today's environment, losing an arm is actually no different from directly sentencing to death. With a stiff turn of his head, as he gazed at the wound on his left shoulder, Gu-ran's pale face suddenly eased. The wound seemed to be much better than he had anticipated, and the expected bone fracture did not appear. Although it was also a blurry mess, in reality, only a layer of flesh had been cut off, without damaging the bone. With this discovery, the desire for survival in my heart could no longer be controlled, and I quickly climbed up from the falling seat, unable to even control the mechanical bow that fell to the side. Escape. This is the only thought that fills Gu-ran's entire heart at this moment. Even though he acted quickly, it was still a bit late, and the ogre had also stepped onto the entrance of the hallway and was approaching. Feeling the pungent heat waves emanating from the other person's nostrils, I watched as my big hand, with its nails shining cold, waved towards me. For some reason, in that moment, Gu-ran felt the whole world quiet down, and the attack of the ogre in front of him seemed to turn into slow motion. Of course, all of this is just an illusion. The speed of the ogre's striking hand is still rapid, but his mind is overloaded at this moment, and his reaction speed has greatly improved. However, this does not mean that the crisis no longer exists. Remember a saying that goes well. The body cannot keep up with the reaction. Gu-ran's current state is the most authentic portrayal of this statement. Although his reaction is fast enough, with his current physical condition, it is impossible for him to make a rapid dodge action. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Kill the ogre and cut off the beard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Kill the ogre and cut off the beard. However, there is no absolute thing in the world, and sometimes self-rescue does not necessarily require one's own body to make changes. In the depths of the mind that outsiders cannot see, the card points stored in the life card book quietly decrease by 4 points. At the same time, the space above the head of the external world suddenly changes, and a huge, erect void eye condenses into shape in an instant. The giant void eye aimed straight at the ogre ahead, and in the next instant, a black light shot out from it. The black beam of light was extremely fast and quickly penetrated the body of the ogre. At the same time, the massive body of the ogre suddenly froze, and its large hand stopped less than 30 centimeters away from Gu-ran's head. A cold sweat appeared on my forehead, filled with fear in my heart. I almost confessed my life today. Suppressing the pain on his left shoulder and a hint of lethargy, Gu-ran felt a fierce force surge out of nowhere. Instead of taking advantage of this opportunity to escape, he quickly pulled out the large fruit knife from his waist and quickly plunged it into the ogre's throat. It wasn't over yet, so he used all his strength and twisted it with all his might, and suddenly a huge wound was cut through the ogre's neck. Stinky blood spurted out, and Gu-ran's whole body was immediately stained with blood in front of him. At first glance, it added a touch of liveliness. After wiping the warm blood from his face, Gu-ran no longer hesitated and quickly withdrew and flew away. He has done everything he can, and the rest can only be determined by fate. In the midst of blood splattering, a row of incredibly prominent bright red footprints were left on the ground, but at this moment he could no longer afford to clean up. His current state was not much better than that of the ogre behind him. Losing the only weapon in hand, the card's initiative is still cooling down. To exaggerate, even an ordinary person now poses a great threat to him. Rushing all the way into the room that was pried open yesterday, Gu-ran closed the door that had already been damaged, and then rushed into the bedroom inside the house. Fortunately, the door of this bedroom is still intact. However, the locked bedroom door did not bring him much sense of security. He was well aware that for the ogre, the door in front of him was like a fragile layer of glass, which could easily be smashed with just a little force. The previous ferocity dissipated without a trace, and was replaced by a pale complexion and a beating heart. At this moment, Gu-ran felt as if he had returned to that night more than 10 years ago, submerged again in the surging flood. Except for that night, there was never a moment that made Gu-ran panic, wander, and disgust his own weakness like now. If there is another miracle card in hand at this moment. If the cooldown time of the active, Soul Mastering Eye, of the Inside Eye card is not as long as 10 minutes. If one's physical fitness is stronger. Countless thoughts emerged in his heart, and if he had only one of them, he would never be so embarrassed today. He would hide in a corner like a dog, needing to pray to decide his own life and death. However, the reality is often so cruel. At this moment, he could only pray in his heart time and time again, praying that the damage he had caused on the ogre's neck before was enough to prevent him from supporting himself and coming all the way to kill him. Just thinking about how confident he was when he first left, striving to complete the cleaning of the entire building in one day today, it took less than 10 minutes before he became so embarrassed. Gu-ran laughed at himself, feeling bitter and unable to speak to others. Time passed by minute by second, and gradually, the panic on Gu-ran's face dissipated, and the surprise resurfaced. It had been several minutes since he hid in this bedroom, but the ogre had not been found for a long time, and he had some speculations in his heart about it. However, Gu-ran did not take action and remained quiet in the bedroom. In a few minutes, the proactive ability of the Inside Eye card will be able to be used again, and it's not too late to go out at that time. Previously, due to a slight carelessness, this caused the subsequent series of troubles. If you don't stand straight at the end of the hallway, but rely on the corner of the wall to attack, even if the ogre throws a huge axe unexpectedly, he can completely use the wall to avoid, and there won't be so many bad things in the future. This once is enough. Gu-ran swore that he would never make a second mistake. About 2 more minutes passed in the middle, and finally a mechanical reminder sound that had been waiting for a long time rang in my ear. Overkill to obtain 6 source energy. Quickly click on the attribute panel, and after seeing the level column change from 0, February 10th, to 0, August 10th, Gu-ran felt relieved and breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. After more than 3 minutes, at the first moment when the Soul Mastering Eye had completed its cooldown, Gu-ran couldn't wait any longer and quickly walked towards the outside. He couldn't wait to check the drop of the ogre. Although the source energy point had increased from 2 to 8, the card point on his body had decreased to 6. According to the fact that every time he activated the Soul Mastering Eye, it required 4 card points, which means he can only activate his card ability again now. Gu-ran believes that no matter who it is placed on, a strong sense of insecurity will arise in his heart. As soon as I stepped out of the door, I saw the huge body of the ogre lying straight on the left side of the door, surrounded by a large pool of bright red blood. What made Gu Ran's face look ugly was that there was no falling light above the corpse at this moment. Looking at the empty body, Gu Ran was a bit stunned. Is there still a limit to picking up drops and missing the pickup time? A hint of anxiety flashed in his heart, but his eyes quickly flickered, and a cold color flashed deep in his eyes. He noticed another issue, that apart from no light drops on the body of the ogre, even the arrows on his body were completely gone. Gu Ran couldn't have imagined that someone had intercepted Hu, not only taking away the loot of killing the ogre himself, but also taking away the mechanical bow. After arriving at the end of the corridor and confirming that the mechanical bow that had fallen before was also missing, Gu Ran's face was gloomy as he walked step by step along the corridor towards the other side. Crossing over the body of the ogre and passing by the room 405 where he had just hidden, he paused for a moment, found a moderately sized wooden board from the house, and then quickly left, continuing towards the fourth and final room 406 on the side. He may not have been clear before, but after yesterday's inspection, Gu Ran has already confirmed that this 406 is the only household on these 4 floors with living people. This makes the problem very clear. No matter what, the survivors of 406 are the most suspected individuals. P.S. Seeking follow-up reading. For a new book, follow-up reading is the most important thing, which is related to the subsequent series of recommendations. Thank you for your understanding. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Miracle Cards. Black Rock Stone Axe, for support. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Miracle Card Black Rock Stone Axe, for support. In front of the door of room 406, cold words spewed out from Gu Ran's mouth. I have dozens of numbers. If I don't open the door, I will bear the consequences. I will kill all the monsters, and I'm afraid I won't be able to add another person. Specially emphasizing the pronunciation of person is a warning and also a step he gave. It's best for the other party to follow along, otherwise, the previous words were not just a joke. The world is undergoing changes and natural disasters have struck. In today's environment, a soft-hearted person cannot live long. He really doesn't mind having more lives in his hands. There was no response, and there was silence all around, giving people an instinctive illusion of whether they had made a mistake. Regarding this, Gu Ran's face remained unchanged at all, and his voice still sounded out of concern. 10, 9, 8. 2" When the call reached 2, the sound stopped because the door in front of me had quietly opened a gap. Then a gaze peeked out from behind the door. This is a middle-aged man. As soon as he peeked out his gaze, he hit him with a ha-ha. Ha-ha-ha, buddy, are you injured? Wait, I'll get you a medical kit. We just happen to be at home. However, before he could finish speaking, Gu Ran interrupted directly. I'll give you 20 seconds to return my things in their original condition. It's one less thing, and I'll go in and retrieve them myself later. Believe me, that's definitely not what you want to see. A cold and stiff voice came out, accompanied by a bright blood color on his body, making the man's smile stiff on his face, and a faint sense of fear flashed deep in his pupils. But he concealed it very well, then turned around in an instant and spoke again. Brother, are you referring to the monster in front of me? Just now, I happened to see someone coming down upstairs. It has nothing to do with us. No matter how flashy he said, Gu Ran's face remained unchanged. He stood quietly in front of the door, with a wooden board blocking his chest and a cold expression on his face. At first glance, the first impression given to people is, this is definitely an incredibly stubborn and straightforward person. Time slowly passed, and as Gu Ran remained silent, a hint of anger appeared in the man's eyes. Then, with a click, the door crack was closed again. Seeing this, Gu Ran still stood quietly at the door, without taking too much precautions, as if he was not worried about what the other party might attack in the future. This is not because he wants it big, but because he has enough confidence in his heart. In fact, at the moment the other person appeared, his insight had already obtained the complete information of the other person. Name. Sun Haitao, race. Human race, age. 35, level. None, ordinary human, not yet awakened, that's right, he is just an ordinary person who has not yet awakened his life card book and is not yet an official card master. Therefore, under the premise of using wooden boards to defend several vital points of his upper body, what if the other party attacks with his mechanical bow? The worst-case scenario is just wasting 4 credit points. Of course, the prerequisite is that the opponent will not have a hot weapon like a handgun in their hand, otherwise even if they have a wooden board in their hand, it may not be very safe. In fact, the safest way is to directly take action just now, control the other person with the soul mastering eye, and then manually solve it. The benefits of this approach are very obvious, and there will be no accidents. And the reason why there is no such choice is that there are not many card points in hand, and Gu Ran does not want to waste them on an ordinary person. Secondly, as a person who has lived in a peaceful society for more than 20 years, if he had no reason to kill, he would still be extremely opposed in his heart. I hope you can be smarter. Just as my thoughts flashed, a faint sound of opening the door rang out again. Gu Ran's eyes narrowed slightly, and although his body remained motionless, his attention was highly focused. Once he noticed something was wrong, he would not hesitate to activate his card ability. After all, he didn't take any action, and the middle-aged man finally handed over everything intact. Gu Ran's cold gaze swept over and he didn't say anything more. Although he didn't want to kill, it didn't mean he had good intentions. Not asking oneself is a thief. He has always been extremely disgusted with such unclean goods. Of course. It all starts with the candy I lost out of thin air in kindergarten. Returning to the 3rd floor home, Gu Ran set aside the mechanical bow, arrow bag, fruit knife, and other items. He didn't rush to check the fall of the ogre in his hand, but took out a damp mop from the bathroom. Along the way, all the blood stains around my doorstep were cleaned up, and clothes covered in blood were simply thrown downstairs. At the same time, he endured the burning pain from his left shoulder and rinsed his entire body clean. Finally, he roughly treated the wound. There is no way, if these are not cleaned up, the rich blood will still attract some ghosts and gods. Currently, his combat power is greatly reduced, so Gu Ran has to be cautious and cautious. As for the monster corpse on the 4th floor, what does it have to do with him? Seek your own blessings. After more than 20 minutes of appearing refreshed on the sofa again, he couldn't help but pick up the card on the table and eagerly examine it. There are a total of 3 cards, one of which is a split card, and the other 2 seem to be all miracle cards. Gu Ran was surprised by this and also had doubts. Is there a significant drop bonus for level crossing kills? It's not surprising that he has such doubts. In theory, killing that goblin yesterday had a first kill benefit, but he still only got 1 miracle card. Since both the words, welfare, have come out, this will only be triggered when killed for the first time. Everyone only has 1 chance, so it's unreasonable to randomly level up and kill, and the rewards will far exceed this so-called welfare. Is that song, Killing Welfare, just a bluff? With confusion, Gu Ran opened the attribute introductions of 3 cards separately. Card score *3 points, note. This card does not occupy a slot and will disappear directly after use. After watching the first card score card, Gu Ran's face turned a bit ugly. He only earned 3 points, not to mention accumulating more card points. He didn't even come back, and when he left, it was 10 points. Now, he only has 9 points left. This was not the main point yet. His gaze turned to the other 2 cards, and he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Blue stone card Black Rock Stone Axe Fragment, *1, quality. Blue stone 1 star, regular, passive. Equip this card and you will be able to summon an excellent Black Rock Stone Axe as your own weapon at any time. Note: passive does not require card points, active, heavy strike. Consume 2 points of card points, briefly charge, the weaker the equipment's physique, the longer the charge time, and vice versa, then throw the stone axe and make the following judgment based on the attacked unit's physique. When the attacked unit is weaker than the card equipment, it will trigger a knockback effect while causing damage. When the attacked unit is of similar physique or stronger than the card equipment, it only deals damage. Cooling time of 10 minutes, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Battle of Goblin Again, for follow.up reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Battle of Goblin Again, for follow.up reading. After reading the attributes of the second card, Gu-Ran's face could no longer be black. With the last glimmer of hope, he quickly glanced at the remaining card. Qingsha card Junior Storage Card Fragment, *1, Quality. Blue Stone 1 star, Regular, Passive. Equip this card and you will have a portable card space with a volume of 1 cubic meter. Active, Charge. Consume 1 card point, and within the next 10 seconds, you will be able to freely store or retrieve items in this card space. Note. After 10 seconds, if you want to open the space again, you will need to pay 1 card point again. Sigh. A long sigh rang out from the living room. It was impossible not to be disappointed. What was almost exchanged for with one's life has a value far lower than the initial effort, and it would not be easy for anyone. Indeed, these are 2 brand new miracle cards, but they are clearly marked with the word fragment at the back, indicating that they cannot be used directly. With a thought, Gu-Ran felt a bit unwilling. Quickly, the 2 cards were successfully lost in my mind, but the newly occupied 2 slots in my life card book were dark and unusable. At the same time, the mechanical prompt sound in the ear also provided an answer. Cannot be used. To merge 1-star card fragments into a complete miracle card, 3 identical card fragments are required. The fatigue in his eyes, accompanied by the sound of a warning in his ear, could no longer be concealed. Gu-Ran stepped into the bedroom and threw himself into the soft bed. After the previous mental overload, he became extremely lethargic and has been able to support himself to the point where he is almost at his limit. And now this disappointment is more like adding fire, making him just want to sleep soundly and lazy to think about these bad things. To be honest, the drop this time was not so unexpected. If the miracle card is really so easy to obtain, what is the significance of yesterday's first kill welfare? It's just that I had too much hope before, which caused a huge gap before and after viewing attributes, which is exactly what I said. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Upon waking up, Gu-Ran found that the sky outside had turned dark and night was about to fall, which meant he had slept for nearly 10 hours. He felt a bit sad about this. You know, from last night until now, he only went out for less than half an hour midway, while the rest of the time was spent sleeping. And the most important thing is that he is not naturally awake at this moment, but has been awakened by hunger. Goo 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 goo. An extremely strong sense of hunger came from his stomach, and Gu-Ran quickly got up from the bed, touching the wound on his left shoulder in the middle, causing him to grit his teeth in pain. Although 10 hours have passed, it is obvious that the wound is not so easy to recover. Even after becoming a card master, the physical fitness has strengthened once, and the body's self-healing ability has also been improved to a certain extent. However, according to his own speculation, it should take at least 3 or 4 days to recover to its full potential. I soaked the bucket noodles with the hot water I poured yesterday and added 2 sausages. However, he quickly realized something was wrong. With this bucket of instant noodles and 2 sausages added, his stomach was not even half full. He dried 2 more breads, an apple, and a large piece of chocolate, which made him feel that his stomach was barely about 8% full. But the problem is that in just 2 days, he has already consumed more than half of the food at home, and the remaining food is only enough for 5 days, right? It's the amount from the previous 5 days, and now it's probably only enough for him to eat for 2 days. Does it mean that after strengthening the body, the appetite will also increase? Gu Ran frowned subconsciously. If that were the case, then the previous plan would not work. He was originally planning to rest at home for a few days, and then continue exploring when his shoulder injury was completely healed. Ultimately, his own safety had to be given top priority, but now it seems that it is no longer possible. I hope the wound will be better tonight. I silently prayed in my heart, but Gu Ran also felt a bit helpless. After all, if you want to go out, at least you need to be able to shoot arrows again. Otherwise, if you encounter danger, you can only rely on the soul-reaching eye to save your life. The 4-point card is divided once, which is not reluctant, but really unbearable. The night passed quickly, and on September 23rd, the third day after the external change, Gu Ran left early again. Gently shaking his left arm, even though he tried to maintain a small movement, Gu Ran could still feel the burning pain coming from his left shoulder. He had no way to do anything about it. After all, time was still too short, but the only thing he was grateful for was that he could barely make the archery. Although it would be painful, he couldn't care about so much at this moment. He didn't choose to go to the 4th floor. The 6 households on the 3rd floor now only have him as a living person. The remaining 5 households must always be able to find something, so there's no need to sacrifice their proximity for distance. Quickly, the doors of the other households were all pried open one by one, and after a rush of work, Gu Ran finally found a lot of things. This includes dozens of kilograms of rice, a few smoked cured meats, several bags of beef jerky, bread, biscuits, sausages, cigarettes, alcohol, and other items. Roughly estimated, even with his current appetite, these foods are at least enough for him to eat for a month. The most surprising thing was that he also got a set of gas stove and stove in room 306, which means that it will no longer be difficult to eat hot food in the future, and the rice, cured meat and other things he got can also be cooked well. Finally, there was the thing in his hand at this moment. It was a short-handled machete with a shape similar to that of a Nepalese army knife. It was much more convenient to hold than the large fruit knife hanging from his waist. If I had this short-handled knife in my hand yesterday, when the ogre was captured by the Dementor's eye, he could easily cut open his entire throat. At the entrance of room 306, Gu Ran walked out carrying a gas cylinder and headed towards his own home. He lives in room 303, and because it's not far apart, he didn't lock his own door when moving various things, which would be too troublesome. Just as one foot stepped into the door, Gu Ran's footsteps suddenly paused, and the next second his body flew back. The gas cylinder on the right shoulder was quickly lowered, and the mechanical bow and arrow on the back were simultaneously removed. Then, the long bow was full, and the arrows flew, creating a set of movements that could be described as flowing clouds and water. Looking ahead, a grayish-green figure suddenly emerged from behind the door, with a wolf-tooth stick in its hand that was emitting a faint light, fiercely smashing it from the front of the room, leaving a deep white mark on the ground. It had an arrow hanging on its chest, wrapped in inexplicable mucus, and was clearly a goblin who wanted to sneak an attack. Name: Goblin, regular, race. Goblin, level 0, weapon. Goblin standard wolf-tooth stick, skill. Crush the skull and strike heavily, features. Social, omnivorous, exotic version of Flathead Brother. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Level upgrade and changes to the life card book, seeking follow-up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Level upgrade and changes to the life card book, seeking follow-up. Staring at the goblin in front of him, Gu Ran's eyes showed a hint of anger, and his attack frequency was constantly increasing. Arrows were pulled out from the quiver behind him and quickly penetrated the opponent's body. Under the rapid attack, the wound on his left shoulder had already cracked, but he ignored it and continued to attack quickly on his own, as if he couldn't feel the burning pain coming from his shoulder. In fact, if someone familiar with Gu Ran is here, it can be seen that he is really angry. He almost fell into a cannibal hand, which had already made him hold his breath, but now Goblin is knocking on his door again. If it weren't for his focused attention, he would have maintained the necessary vigilance even near his doorstep. The heavy hammer he just received could have caused him another injury, and at worst, he would have wasted 4 points to ensure his own safety. Forget about the ogre, after all, he is stronger than himself in both level and strength, but what is this goblin? How can the weakest type of monster dare to run out and provoke him? Angry, Gurran's mind remained clear, and his various responses were not chaotic. Coupled with yesterday's killing experience, he quickly killed this goblin as expected. The mechanical prompt sound in the ear also came with it. Obtain 2 points of source energy. This was not over yet, accompanied by a slight tremor in his muscles, he successfully rose to level 1, and surprisingly, a new change occurred in his life card book in his mind. Level upgrade, current level 1, plus 1 card slot in the life card book. A strong surprise arose from the bottom of my heart, and I forcefully pressed down to check my own attribute panel and the impulse to drop. I stuffed the only drop card on this goblin corpse into my pocket. Gurran began to quickly clean up the battlefield at the entrance. Dragging Goblin's body back to the corner at the end of the hallway, the ground was completely cleaned, and finally the gas cylinder was sent into the kitchen, locking the door behind it. It was then that he urgently opened his own attribute panel. Name: Gurran, race: Human/Card Master, age: 21, level 1, 0/20, life card book. March 7th, miracle card blue stone, inside eye, black rock stone axe fragment *1, junior storage card fragment *1, card score 9, confirming that the card slot in his life card book had indeed increased by 1 grid and his level had also been raised to level 1, Gurran's attention quickly shifted again. When he saw the word 0/20 in parentheses after the level, he frowned and muttered to himself. Does it take 20 points of source energy to upgrade from level 1 to level 2? Indeed, it becomes more difficult to upgrade to later levels. Closing the attribute panel, the joy in his heart gradually dissipated, and he frowned again as he looked at the dropped card he had taken out of his pocket. Surprisingly, only 1 card fell. Is it a card split or a miraculous card fragment? The attribute panel of the card in front of me has already appeared in my mind. Blue stone card chieftain Sentry fragment, *1, quality. Blue stone 1 star, regular, passive. Equip this card and you will automatically gain Goblin proficiency, allowing you to communicate with goblins without obstacles. Note: passive does not require card points. Active, Chief's order. Spend 2 points and summon an ordinary goblin tribe warrior to fight for you, equipped with a standard wolf tooth club. You have absolute command over it, and the goblin warrior's existence time is 10 minutes, cooldown of half an hour. Note: goblin warriors have 3 resurrection times. If goblin is not dead during summoning, the resurrection times will not be consumed. If goblin is dead during summoning, 1 resurrection time will be deducted. Once the number is exhausted, the card will be permanently damaged and cannot be repaired. Note 2. In addition to the end of the duration and goblin's death, card equippers can also automatically cancel summoning. Canceling summoning does not consume resurrection times, nor does it refund card points. Seeing it was a miraculous card fragment, Gurran didn't have much surprise in his heart. To be honest, he actually hoped to drop a card shard more because it was more practical. Miracle cards are undoubtedly extremely precious, but the prerequisite is that they are complete. As for the card fragments, it is far from enough. It is uncertain how long it will take to collect them all, and even whether they can be collected is uncertain. What if there is a cheat in the middle? Put this fragment of the Chief's Sentinel card into the card book, and instinctively grab the mechanical bow on the side. Gurran felt a bit puzzled and unsure whether to continue exploring outside today. At present, there is no shortage of food at home for a short period of time, and the urgent need has been resolved. Should we first let all the injuries heal before taking the next step? Speaking of his own injury, he instinctively raised his left arm and then his eyes suddenly froze. What's going on? The wound on my shoulder has healed. With a hint of uncertainty, Guran shook vigorously several times, feeling no pain at all. He was certain that his injury had indeed fully recovered, and at the same time, he was secretly surprised. Is it true that, like most novels and games, as long as the majority of injuries are upgraded, they will be directly repaired? With joy in his heart, he didn't hesitate any longer and grabbed the mechanical bow, stepping towards the door. Since the injury has healed, what reason is there to stay at home? Cleaning up the entire building one day earlier will allow you to leave the residential building one day earlier and explore the outside world. Although it had been 3 days, he still kept thinking about the light cluster that had fallen in the green forest across the road. Guran had an intuition that the light cluster had a high probability of being a complete miracle card. That's why he appears so eager. After all, the population of Jiangqing is nearly 1 million, and even in the surrounding suburbs, the number of people living before the mutation definitely exceeds 5 digits. Who can be sure that only he noticed that celestial light? After 2 days of hard work, the monsters on the 3rd and 4th floors have been cleaned up, but Guran still carefully inspected them to avoid any missed fish or newly emerged monsters. After confirming everything was correct, he aimed his target at the 5th layer. He thought there would be several battles, but Guran was extremely cautious all the way. However, the fact was that he had thought too much and did not find any monsters on the 5th layer. This surprised him a bit, but what was interesting was that all the doors of the rooms on this floor were open, and he saw identical marks on all the doors. Guran was certain that all the doors on this floor had been violently smashed open, and for a moment he was somewhat puzzled. Did any survivors take the initiative first? With confusion in mind, Guran could only continue moving towards the 6th floor. Further confirmation is needed to determine whether it is as he had guessed. As soon as he walked out of the hallway, 2 gray-green goblins appeared straight in his eyes. Sleeping slot. Unconsciously blurting out a line of national essence, because at the same time as seeing each other, both goblins also saw him. ##%*. Upon hearing a strange scream, goblins from both ends swung their wolf fangs and rushed towards him. Seeing this, Guran could only quickly turn around. 1-on-1, he can easily kill, but 1-on-2 is not like that, there is a great risk involved. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Summoning Cards. The Chief's Sentry, seeking follow-up reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Summoning Card Chieftain Sentry, for follow-up reading. As we descended to the 5th floor and crossed the corner of the hallway, Guran paused in his footsteps and did not choose to continue running. Instead, he stood firmly against the wall. Carrying the mechanical bow and arrow bag behind him, he pulled out the short-handled machete from his waist, and his muscles tightened all over. It was almost imaginable that his next shot would be a thunderous blow. The reason for abandoning the mechanical bow and choosing melee is actually very simple. During the period of just going downstairs, there were only 4 arrows left in the arrow bag, and even if all 4 arrows hit the same goblin afterwards, it would be difficult to completely kill them. And even if one head is successfully killed, isn't there still a second head? That is to say, no matter what, he had to engage in melee until the end. In that case, he chose to use the difference in vision at the corner of this corridor to create a chance for himself to make a quick kill. Instead of being passive in close combat, taking the initiative may be more surprising, which is Guran's current thought in his heart. And as long as one head can be killed first, the second head will be easily solved. Dong dong dong. The hurried footsteps moved from far to near, and Guran's eyes narrowed slightly. Only the faint thoughts he could hear echoed in his heart. 3, 2, 1. As soon as the word rang out, his entire body suddenly erupted and he stepped forward, revealing his figure. At the same time, his right-hand short-handled machete quickly swung out, targeting the neck of the goblin running ahead. Shwa! A cold light flashed by, and in the next moment, Goblin's head separated directly from his body, and he was suddenly cut off with a single blow. From this, it can be seen how terrifying the power of Gu Ran's knife was just now. Even the goblin closely following behind had a fierce expression, and for a moment, he didn't realize it. However, Gu Ran himself was not surprised. Not to mention that this goblin was not a creature known for its physique, coupled with his level advantage, his body had undergone 2 rounds of strengthening, and it was not surprising that he had this power with a single blow. Without paying attention to the falling in front of him, Gu Ran, who had put away his machete, ran along the 5th floor corridor again without any hesitation. At the same time, he once again removed the mechanical bow from his back, arched and continued his previous kite tactics. In fact, Gu Ran's series of actions are not too stunning, but because they are decisive and agile enough, they give people a pleasing and decisive feeling. Of course. This is destined to be a solo show without an audience. Quickly, the second goblin also fell under precise attacks from 4 consecutive arrows. Standing at the end of the 5th floor corridor, Gu Ran's face was calm, and his figure stood still in place without choosing to approach it the first time. It wasn't until a few seconds later that a white light shot out from Goblin's body. After confirming that a mechanical prompt sounded in his ear, he stepped over to pick up the drop. It has to be said that after experiencing the crisis of the ogre, Gu Ran has indeed grown a lot. He may not have a very intuitive feeling himself, but the fact is that when he picked up the drop, he curled his lips, but ultimately couldn't suppress the joy in his heart. To be honest, Gu Ran is extremely satisfied with the answer sheet he delivered this time, as he has not used his Insight Eye card ability to do a 1.1 double kill. Roughly tidying up the floor, I found a room with intact door locks in the bedroom before starting to check for any drops. 2 goblins dropped a total of 3 cards, one of which was a 2-point denomination card, allowing their own card score to successfully break through double digits and reach 11 points. The other 2 cards surprised Gu Ran greatly, as they were all identical fragments of the Chieftain Sentry card from the previous one. This also means that he can now directly synthesize the complete Chieftain Sentry miracle card, and this sudden surprise made Gu Ran think he was dreaming for the first time. When he repeatedly looked at the attribute panels of 2 cards several times, he finally confirmed that he had read correctly. However, the excitement in my heart has not dissipated for a long time. As far as he currently knows, there are 2 types of miraculous cards that Goblin will drop. One is the Chieftain Sentry, and the other is the Goblin Standard Wolf Tooth Stick that appeared in the first kill of the Forika. Even if there are only these 2 types, the probability of 3 consecutive goblins dropping the same type of card is equally small. I thought it would take at least a few more days before I could gather all 3 fragments of the Chieftain's Whistle. But I didn't expect that after only a few tens of minutes, I would have obtained my second complete miracle card like this, and I couldn't help but lose my composure. Are you sure you want to merge 3 card fragments into 1 complete card? Sure. With a firm answer, a flash of light flashed in front of me. The 3 card fragments that were originally stacked in my hand disappeared, replaced by a complete Chieftain's Whistle card. Blue Stone Card Chieftain Sentry, Quality. Blue Stone 1 star, Regular, Passive. Equip this card. After confirming multiple times that the word fragments really disappeared from the top column of the attribute panel, Gu Ran's heart was completely relieved. Suppress the excitement in your heart and force yourself to calm down. The Chief's Sentinel card was re-recorded in the card book, and then Gu Ran quickly left the room. Happy returns happy, but the most important thing now is to clean up the monsters in the entire building as soon as possible. He clenched the mechanical bow again and walked slowly towards the 6th floor, with only one thought in his heart at this moment. Since the level has been raised and there is another complete miracle card, why not just take advantage of it and clean up the entire building today? Do whatever you say, and Gu Ran quickly returned to the 6th floor, but this time the monster's figure disappeared. It seems that apart from the previous 2 goblins, there are no other creatures in this layer, of course, including humans. After inspecting all the rooms on the 6th floor, Gu-Rant's doubts were even greater. The rooms on this floor were almost identical to those on the 5th floor, and all the doors had been violently smashed open, but no human survivors were seen. Is it on the 7th floor? Gazing up at the ceiling, above is the highest floor of the residential building, and then up is the roof. Are there really survivors on top? Gu-Ran furrowed his brow slightly, and a hint of hidden worry quietly surfaced in his heart at some point. If there are really survivors, and if all the rooms on the 5th and 6th floors are occupied by humans, then where did the 2 goblins on the 6th floor just come from? Can it be that they came up from the 1st or 2nd floors below? Or was it that the survivor accidentally overlooked while searching various rooms? He felt that neither of these possibilities was significant. P.S. It is very important to follow up on data during the new book period. We hope that readers will try not to keep books as much as possible. Thank you. End of this chapter.